Okay, hello. This is the third video clip for the online meeting of March 26th. And I'm going to start with another security layer for commercial aviation, which is checked bag screening. So usually, if you have a checked bag, if you have a baggage for checking, you want to check it before the security checkpoint, right? So uh, the instrument, the screening detectors, they will just check, they will screen your baggage that has been checked. And there are two basic types of checked bag detectors. And the first type is called EDS, which is an abbreviation for explosives detection system. Okay, these systems, they serve as a primary screening method and identify suspicious items or anomalies by utilizing X-rays with computer-assisted imaging system. Um, so normally, when your bag is checked, okay, the computer will use X-ray to decide if your bag is dangerous. Okay, so now we have two pictures here. Um, on the left side, it is a picture for standalone EDS. On the right side, it's called inline EDS because it has been embedded in a conveyor system of baggages, right? So it's a part of this conveyor system. It's automatic. It's more convenient than the standalone EDS on the left. And at airports with EDS machines, checked bags, they're generally subjected to three levels of inspection. So the first level, level one, these bags, they're automatically screened for explosives by EDS units. Sorry, here is a typo. I will change it later. Bags that are not cleared here are passed on to level two. It means that the machine will try to automatically detect the baggage. And if the computer cannot decide a specific item is dangerous or not, then this bag will be what? Will be passed on to level two. And at level two, screeners, an officer view, screeners, officers, they will view the EDS generated images because the computer itself cannot automatically analyze the images. So personnel, human beings, they will intervene. They will view images of the contents of the alarmed bags on a computer monitor and try to clear them through use of on-screen resolution tools. Okay, it means that if the computer cannot draw a conclusion, let's just use human eyes and brains to do that. If that is still not working, okay, bags that are not cleared here at level two are passed on to level three. So level three, where screeners manually inspect them using ETD machines. ETD is actually the second type of detector for checked bag screening. But at this level, screeners, officers, they will just bring ETD machines to the item, to the suspicious item, and maybe open it, maybe not open it, but manually scan it to make sure it's not a danger. It's not a danger to the aircraft. Okay, so here is ETD. ETD is, like I said, is the second type of detector for explosives. It's called explosive trace detection, which help resolve EDS alarms or serve as a primary screening equipment when EDS systems are not available for some airports, right? So it uses a human operator using a chemical analysis device to detect traces of the vapors or residue of explosive material. So you can see this officer here is inserting a piece of paper. I mentioned this before. It's like a facial tissue. It will an officer will use it to swipe suspicious item to collect the residue of explosive materials and use this small machine to screen to make a conclusion. Okay, so obviously ETD is much smaller than EDS, right? Than EDS. So today, most airports in US, they do have inline EDS. They do have inline EDS. And there are two issues for checked bag screening: technology and method. As for technology, because terrorist threat evolved and new technologies become available, so TSA need to revise the detection requirements for the EDS equipment. So they have to do this continuously, which means this is a long-term investment. Okay, it's like a black hole sucking more and more money into it. Okay, and the second is about method. Should we use inline or standalone EDS? Okay, usually the former one is preferred, which means you embed an EDS to a conveyor system, right? Which means that this whole system is automatic when the baggage is going through. Okay, EDS will detect them. But the problem is that at the very beginning, when you try to make this inline EDS system, it's very expensive, and you have to maybe redesign your airport to adapt to this inline EDS system. At the very beginning, it's very expensive, but in long term, it's actually cheaper than standalone EDS, because if you are using standalone EDS, you have to assign personnel to be there to operate this machine, and the efficiency of this machine, of course, is not as high as an inline system because it's totally automatic, right? Okay. The next security layer, and also the last security layer for commercial aviation, is aircraft and onboard security. It's the final layer of aviation security, protection of the aircraft and its crew and passengers on the ground and in flight. Okay, it changed a lot after 9/11, and there are several components for it. The first one is hardened cockpit doors. Okay, so after 9/11, less than a month after 9/11, FAA issued regulation to expedite the reinforcement of cockpit doors on US airliners with the installation of steel bars and locking devices. So the purpose is to stop unauthorized entering to the cockpit, okay, from the cabin, from the passenger cabin of airplane, right? And ATSA in November 2000 mandated the further strengthening of cockpit doors and the door locks to ensure that the doors could not be forced open from the passenger cabin side, right? And by April 2003, more than 10,000 US and foreign aircraft serving United States, they were equipped with new hardened cockpit doors, making air travel safer for passengers and crew. So this component here is very straightforward, right? If there were hijackers, they would try to go inside the cockpit to control the plane. That's the case for 9/11, right? If that is not the case, those two planes would not be hitting the Twin Towers, right? So this is very straightforward. Next one, I mentioned this program before in formal lectures. It's called Federal Air Marshal Programs, or FAMS. It was initiated in 1960s, very early, but most marshals before 911, they were deployed on international airplanes serving United States. And after 911, the number of FAMS, Federal Air Marshals, was dramatically increased from 33 agents okay, before 911, to estimated force of more than 3,500 in 2012. And now they are not only deployed on international planes, but also domestic planes, okay? But not all planes, okay? If a plane, an airplane is considered with high risk for a specific mission, then maybe an air marshal will be there on this plane with firearms. Okay, federal air marshals must operate independently without backup because he or she is on a plane, right? And rank among those federal law enforcement officers that hold the highest standard for handgun accuracy. They must be pretty good shooters, okay? Because it's a very narrow, controlled environment, and you don't want to shoot through the the cabin, right? You don't want to crush the plane, but you also want to deal with the possible dangerous situation on the plane, okay? But the budgetary pressures led to a reduction in the FAMS program. That's because a lot of people they're arguing that in terms of the efficiency of investment, it's better to invest more money in hardened cockpit doors instead of training more high standard federal air marshals and deploy them on planes. Okay, which means FAMS, this program is using more money. So maybe we should get back to hardened cockpit doors. It's more effective, and it uses less money. So that's it. Okay. So there is another program called Federal Flight Deck Officers Program. Okay, it's also a part of onboard security layer. Under this program, qualified airline pilots and certain other cockpit personnel, they can also bring firearms to cockpits and act as federal law enforcement officers. Obviously, this is a backup plan in case that the cockpit has been invaded by criminals, by terrorists, right? And pilots, flight engineers, and navigators on commercial and cargo flights, they are eligible to apply for this program. Okay, at the very beginning, sorry, at the very beginning, in 2003, only 44 FFDOs, Federal Flight Deck Officers, they were trained. Okay, they were authorized to hold firearms in a cockpit. Okay, and there are currently thousands. There is no specific number for that, but a lot more FFDOs they are in the program. Okay, covering more than 100,000 flights per month in US. And of course, there are also crew member security training programs. Okay, the FAA established guidelines for the security training of airline flight and cabin crews since 1980s. It was far beyond 911, right? But after 911, new and detailed guidelines for flight and cabin crew security training programs were created, okay, by TSA. And also ATSA mandated that the new guidelines, these new guidelines should include training in the following aspects, right? So the first one, determination of the seriousness of any occurrence. Okay, the on-flight crew, they are field agents in this scenario. Okay, if there is any incident, okay, they need to judge accurately the seriousness of it. Okay, crew communication and cooperation, use of any protective devices assigned to crew members, and they also need to understand, to learn psychology of terrorists, to cope with hijacker behavior and passenger responses. So before 9/11, the general strategy for onboard crew is to cooperate with hijackers to make sure the damage is kept at minimum. But people didn't anticipate that those hijackers, they don't want ransom, they just want to kill themselves and all other people on the plane. So after 9/11, this principle changed a lot. In necessary scenario, in some necessary scenarios, onboard crew and passengers, they can, if necessary, okay, if necessary, they should fight with hijackers to make sure that these hijackers, they are not using this airplane and people's lives to what, to cause even more damage, okay. And also flight deck, sorry, not a typo here. And also flight deck procedures or aircraft maneuvers to define the aircraft should also be included in the new guidelines for onboard personnel training program. Okay. Okay, that's all for today's meeting. Like I said, the next two meetings, they will be done by your TA, John. He's going to finish the rest of the chapter. Okay, thank you very much.